Kong vs. George, Rampage. Who would win? We always thought that King Kong, the supposed eighth wonder of the world, would be able to fight off anything that stood in his way. But could he have a new competitor? People are beginning to wonder whether King Kong, an oversized gorilla, could really take on George, the albino gorilla from Rampage, a 2018 science fiction film. In the King Kong vs. George battle, who will take the crown? King Kong is a movie monster gorilla that has been a firm favorite in movies, TV shows, and other media since 1933. He's often referred to as the eighth wonder of the world and has even become a focal point of theme parks, video games, comics, books, and more. But would he win a fight against George from Rampage? That's the million-dollar question. King Kong is no normal-sized gorilla. That's obvious by his Empire State Building antics. But it can depend on which film or show you watch to work out if his size is going to work in his favor or George's. It was decided early on in the King Kong film production that he would be a giant, terror-inducing gorilla. Given that he would be in combat with fighter planes on top of a building, it was a given. According to a memo written by the film director Marion C. Cooper in 1930, King Kong would have hands and feet the size and strength of steam shovels. His girth would also be that of a steam boiler. King Kong's appearance and size changed throughout the film's creation. Initially, Marion had imagined King Kong would stand at around 40 to 50 feet tall. However, the models created for the film were only approximately 18 feet tall when used for Skull Island. When King Kong was in New York, the models were around 24 feet. Because Marion had visions for how giant King Kong would actually be, his size was continuously manipulated throughout the film with clever film angles. In some scenes, he would appear as large as 60 feet tall. While the constant changing of size goes against almost every rule of consistency within a film, Cooper believed it was the only way to show the dramatic sizing of King Kong in each scene. He said if Kong had been only 18 feet high on the top of the Empire State Building, he would have been lost like a little bug. The King Kong bust in the film was 40 foot, but his hand was built to the scale of an ape almost twice that size at 70 feet. The promotional material released by RKO lists King Kong's height as 40 feet, but in the 2017 film, Kong Skull Island, he's 104 feet. To know whether Kong would win a fight based on size would actually depend on the camera angle and movie. When Marion C. Cooper, the King Kong film director, wrote a memo detailing King Kong's traits, he spoke of the strength of 100 men. That surely has to work in King Kong's favor. He survived often fatal bites by the skull lizard and even lived to see another day after being burned by the traps. You can't help but know that King Kong has some immense strength. There are many scenes throughout most of the King Kong movies that show his immeasurable strength. He shakes log bridges to send men plummeting to their death and gets into fights with T-Rex dinosaurs and wins. This giant furry creature also destroys buildings and escapes out of his chains when filmmakers brought him to New York as a showpiece. During the scene where King Kong reaches the top of the Empire State Building, he also grabs a plane that gets too close and throws it down to the ground, killing everyone inside it. In King Kong vs. Godzilla, King Kong picks up a train as if it weighs nothing at all. At this point, it almost seems like George from the movie Rampage has met his match. Throughout all of the King Kong movies, Kong is shown to display exceptional intelligence. Marion C. Cooper chose to give him both semi-human intelligence and physical strength, both of which would set the theme and foundation for the entire movie series. King Kong showed his intelligence in several ways, but it did vary depending on which film he was in. In King Kong, produced by Japanese studio Toho, Kong could observe his opponent's fighting style and adapt his own. He could then work out the opponent's weaknesses before exploiting them to win the fight. Who's to say he couldn't do this in a battle against George from Rampage? In King Kong vs. Godzilla, his strength coupled with his intelligence is what would ultimately keep him alive. He was a gorilla of strategy, opportunity seeking, and problem solving. An example of his ability to seek out solutions is when he's holding on to the Empire State Building near death. Planes are shooting him and he's barely holding on to life. He picks up Anne to see her one last time, then realizes she's at risk if the planes keep shooting at him while he's holding her. He's struggling to hold on to the building due to his injuries, so makes the intelligent choice to plummet over 100 stories to his death to protect Anne before she too got hurt. Viewers are given plenty of hints throughout the film to form an idea of how old Kong is, where he comes from, and the life he has lived. It's thought that he used to have a family, parents and siblings, but they're long dead. He's now alone on Skull Island as the last remaining member of his species. there's no one else like him. With this information, we can safely assume that King Kong is at least a century old or even older before his story truly begins. By the time the American filmmakers arrive on the island, he's already seen and experienced a lot. His battle scars, even before the chaotic scenes of New York, are a testament to this. You could say Kong's longevity is a positive attribute because it links to his ability to survive. He's fought other giant creatures on Skull Island and continued to come out on top. However, film co-producer Mary Parent said Kong is still young, not even fully grown yet. She said Kong is an adolescent when we meet him in the film. He's still growing into his role as Alpha. King Kong is known for his ability and nimbleness based on what he's able to achieve in the film. He can charge those who get in his way, climb buildings, and use his massive arms and hands to swing his way through chaos and destruction. Even though he's giant and destructive, there's often an elegance and skill in his movements. He's able to pluck Anne out of several chaotic situations without hurting or crushing her. When he finds himself embroiled in battles with other creatures and animals, he's also able to defeat them through not only sheer strength but moving his bodies in ways the other animals can't. George is an albino gorilla that becomes a raging monster in the 2018 science fiction film known as Rampage. George starts life in the movie as an albino gorilla who primatologist Davis Okoye saves from poachers. The two become friends, and Davis even teaches him sign language. 3 gene manipulation canisters are strewn across the United States after an accident in a gene manipulation company. 1 lands in George's enclosure, and 2 more are dropped in the path of a wolf and an alligator who eat them. While initially George joins the others to cause carnage, he then joins forces with Davis. The pair must now help destroy the mutated wolf and alligator before they ruin the country. George's superhuman strength proves to be worth its weight in gold in Rampage, but what if he was put up against another gorilla, such as King Kong? Who would win then? King Kong might be strong, but is he a match for George from the 2018 film Rampage? This albino gorilla is able to do some pretty amazing things while making them look effortless. He can take down small buildings, catapult armored Humvees through the air to hit helicopters, and survive the bites of a giant alligator that can even take down a bulletproof wolf. He also has the ability to take on other giant creatures by throwing them through the air in one fell swoop. Both his striking and lifting strengths are next level too, as he can use whatever there is around him as a weapon. He requires this strength as his combat abilities are not up to a high standard due to a life in captivity. This is shown by his battles with Ralph the Wolf Monster, who does seem to have better moves than him, even if his strength isn't entirely on par. George has superhuman speed, which shows in how he's able to make his way through chaos and destruction of cities without all too much effort. Because he's been genetically modified, he has the speed factor of a cheetah. Those who may match him on strength, such as King Kong, may not be able to match him on speed, which could possibly give him the upper hand. His speed is also a necessary factor as he tries to battle the mutated alligator and wolf in Chicago, who are trying to destroy the city. He must destroy them and fast, and his speed coupled with his strength are going to be his most important traits to do so. If there's anything that's going to put George leagues ahead of King Kong, then it's going to be his healing ability. Unlike King Kong, who's taken down by fighter plane guns, George seems to be quite resilient to attacks. He survived an attack by a giant alligator, pulled a pole out of his chest almost as if it were just a splinter, and was the first to get up after a building fell down while he was on it. He also survived a helicopter explosion and a military blast. Even bullets appeared to hit George as if they were insect bites. He doesn't appear to have any notable weaknesses, and certainly doesn't let women get in the way of saving himself, as is the case with King Kong. George's climbing abilities are one of the many traits he has that puts him leagues ahead of his competition. Whenever he needs to escape a situation or get leverage, he can launch himself up a building with relative ease. He can climb much faster than Ralph the Wolf Monster, and Lizzie the Alligator doesn't stand a chance either. While King Kong too can climb, the fact that George is shorter and possibly more agile could give him an advantage. Gorillas in general are intelligent to a degree, but George may be even more so. Even though his size and aggression is due to a pathogen dropped in his enclosure, he still has the ability to maintain his original intelligence. He can understand human concepts, emotions, and battle strategies to help him win the fight. He can also understand sign language, something he was being taught before the pathogen disaster. All of these traits can prove helpful in working with humans against other animals who have set out to destroy the city and potentially mankind. Either way, no matter what would go down, it would be an epic battle unlike any other. Two of the greatest, deadliest gorillas in all of fiction going toe-to-toe, fist-to-fist, in an epic battle to pummel one another to smithereens. It would be absolutely terrifying carnage unlike any other. But hey, it sure would be fun to watch.